Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the garage. Gerald here with you. It's been a little while since I recorded. I've been reading and following a lot of the results coming out of TIFF, the Toronto International Film Festival, as that one typically has a lot to do with what ends up getting nominated for the Academy Awards in the new year. A little video idea that I had a few weeks ago was to give you my dark horses or underdog picks that could possibly end up in the 10 nominees for Best Picture this year. First of all, in looking at my most recent round of predictions, which would have been the first week of September, about 2 weeks ago as we're sitting here, you can see the 10 that I have in the nominees for Best Picture are not going to be in my dark horse predictions. Movies that would kind of come out of nowhere or might be underdog picks to sneak into that final 10 because people across the board, punditry-wise, myself included, just aren't really talking about these movies being a major player. That's what I would consider a dark horse or an underdog. Here's another few titles that I'm not going to include in the dark horse discussion that I'm going to give you today because these movies are frankly being discussed across the board in multiple outlets at being a possible player, and not only that, they're in a lot of critics and pundits' predictions as we currently sit. Even though they might not be in mine, they are heavily in the rotation as being a possible Best Picture contender. Those movies would be A24's Marty Supreme, Begonia, of course, from Yorgos Lanthimos, A House of Dynamite from Oscar legend Catherine Bigelow and Netflix, The Testament of Anne Lee, I'm not going to include in my dark horses, and that one may actually be Rest in Peace, except for maybe an Amanda Seyfried nomination. We'll get into that a little bit, I'm thinking as well. And Frankenstein from Guillermo del Toro, I would also not consider to be a dark horse, as that one is being heavily discussed. And what I would have said a couple weeks ago was a dark horse, I'm taking out of that discussion now, as I think it will end up in a lot of people's top 10 for Best Picture. In fact, it may end up in mine. However, I am not going to include Park Chan-wook's latest No Other Choice as a dark horse Best Picture contender, as I think it is very likely, or at least somewhat likely, that that would end up making the top 10 anyway. Now, there are some other ones that you could maybe with a straight face say it's a dark horse or an underdog. That would be films like The Smashing Machine, and a lot of people are giving that one a lot of credibility this award season, so it would also not be considered a dark horse, although I could see how you could argue that one based on the subject matter, first-time solo director effort from one of the Safdie brothers, The Rock in a dramatic film. I get it if you think that's a dark horse, but I have seen a lot of people throwing that in their top 10, or at least in their near misses. So I won't include it in this video either. I'm going to list these in alphabetical order. I'll go fairly quickly, try to give you some commentary as to why I think they could be a dark horse. Let's go. First up would be Richard Linklater's movie called Blue Moon. Richard Linklater is a weird bird when it comes to the Academy Awards. This is his, not only this project that he have this year, but he has another player in Nouvelle Vague, which may get submitted for international feature, although I think that would be the wrong move on France's part based on what I've heard. I have not seen either of those films. Of the two, I think the more Academy-friendly, or the one that the Hollywood industry would connect to more, would be Blue Moon. Richard Linklater has had success at the Academy Awards, and it has been a while, going all the way back to, of course, Boyhood, I believe was the 2014 Academy Awards, where it was nominated for 6 Oscars, and it ended up winning some pretty notable ones also. He also had some screenplay nominations in the Before trilogy, but aside from those, Linklater has been pretty much absent from the Academy circles. I think with another brilliant screenplay that could sneak into a surprise nomination there also, as a lot of people aren't talking about it, dependent upon the success of the movie once it's released to the public, as it is currently sitting very high at 98% on Rotten Tomatoes at time of recording, and a 78 in the green on Metacritic. It also won the top prize at the Berlin Film Festival earlier this year, and has had rave reviews on the festival circuit this fall. I think Blue Moon is one that you kind of open your eye ever so slightly to have your eye on it. Again, these are dark horses that I don't think are going to happen, but they could happen. Die My Love from Lynn Ramsey. This is definitely a dark horse, if for no other reason the mere fact that it's directed by Lynn Ramsey, as the Academy tends to kind of stay away from her projects and don't really give them the accolades that she or the films deserve in most cases. Die My Love is a film that has been getting critical and extraordinary praise for the performance of Jennifer Lawrence in the movie, who plays a new mother that is going through a bit of postpartum, kind of torturous depression. It's a very dark film. You also have, I would imagine, a great performance from Robert Pattinson here, who is just waiting to be mentioned by the Academy. Literally any day now, he could get a nomination. And then you have powerhouse veterans to not only movies, but the Academy, which is Sissy Spacek and Nick Nolte. One of the big reasons I think it's a possibility is because it's really the only major player for the studio Mubi, which of course last year got The Substance not only nominated in Best Picture, but in 5 total categories. So could Mubi begin a campaign for Die My Love that features the best performance of Jennifer Lawrence's illustrious Oscar-winning career and do similar things for this movie that they did for The Substance? I think it is possible. Is This Thing On? From director Bradley Cooper and Searchlight Pictures. So this is a movie that's been kind of described as a dramedy. It's going to be premiering at the New York Film Festival, so we don't have any real substantial feedback for this movie yet. But I do think it's a dark horse because very few people are talking about it being a Best Picture player contender. But it's directed by Bradley Cooper, who has got maybe more nominations than anybody alive without a win. I'm joking, of course, but he does have 13 Academy Award nominations across multiple categories, which would include not only acting and directing, but also things like producing. And it sounds like it's going to be a very down-to-earth, real-life kind of story that the Academy would be able to connect to while still having kind of an adjacent storyline to acting or to movies. You know, in this case, it's a stand-up comic or a comedian portrayed by Will Arnett, who, of course, is not known for any kind of Academy flair, and usually the Academy loves finding gems and diamonds in the rough like that, which, based on the trailer and the clips that I've seen, that could be the case. And of course, Bradley Cooper himself has a supporting role in the movie, and he is the director. That's the number one thing that's kind of keeping my eye on this thing. And not only that, with Rental Family possibly being dead after the TIFF feedback, this could be Searchlight's big push, and they could kind of abandon Rental Family or at least shift some campaign support to Is This Thing On, especially if it gets rave reviews coming out of the New York Film Festival. K-pop Demon Hunters from Netflix. Guys, the last time an animated film got nominated for Best Picture was 2010, and there were actually 2 years back-to-back there. It was Up in 2009 and Toy Story 3 in 2010. The only other time that an animated film has received a Best Picture nomination was Beauty and the Beast, also from Disney, in 1991. Is 2025-26 going to be the next time that it shows up, 15 years removed from the last time it happened? If so, it could be with a phenomenon called K-pop Demon Hunters. I have a young son myself who just turned 6. This thing is on a loop in this house. He's not even here right now, and it's probably playing the soundtrack or something on one of my Alexas or on the TV or on his iPad. He has been watching it and listening to this thing nonstop for like a month. But it's also critically acclaimed, as it sits at a 77% on Metacritic in the green and a 96 certified fresh over on Rotten Tomatoes. Very few people, at least in the critical space, have had anything negative to say about this movie. Netflix did release it in the eligibility window in theaters for it to be considered for Academy Awards. It would be a far Hail Mary bomb with 1 second left on the clock for this movie to end up in the 10. But I do think that there is a slight possibility that it could happen, making it a true dark horse. Nuremberg from director James Vanderbilt. This is a movie that I know virtually nothing about, and I really hadn't even heard of this film until a couple weeks ago. It was getting some pretty good acclaim on the award circuit, and a lot of people think that it could show up for screenplay or even for score, and maybe even for Russell Crowe, obviously a previous Oscar winner, is the lead in this film. And then you have a supporting performance that you can't count out either from Rami Malek, as well as veteran powerhouse performers like Richard E. Grant and Michael Shannon. So the cast is there, even though the filmmaker doesn't have a lot of credits. But not only the cast, the type of film it is, obviously dealing with World War II. This one is possibly the most related to a hunch that I'm having, knowing what the Academy typically tends to go for when it comes to wartime films. And this also has like a weird kind of September 5 feeling to it, which is a movie that frankly nobody really saw coming when it got nominated for its lone screenplay nomination at the Academy Awards. Now, I am listing these in alphabetical order, But if I was doing this in the countdown format, this would most likely be number 10, as I think it's the least likely to happen. How about Derek Cianfrance's Roof Man? Now, this is a movie that is based on events that actually happened in my hometown where I grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina, so I do have a bit of an attachment to this film. I have not seen it, but I'm very excited to see it, starring a very charismatic Channing Tatum, which he could be described as that in every movie that he's in. I love this dude, especially when there's comedy involved. It's an 85% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 66 in the green on Metacritic. Really favorable reviews on the festival circuit. Not only is Channing Tatum in there, but you have Kirsten Dunst, Lakeith Stanfield, Juno Temple, Peter Dinklage, and like I said, directed by Cianfrance, who did get a nomination for Michelle Williams for his film Blue Valentine several years ago. But generally speaking, he's not one that typically shows up at the Academy Awards. This is one that I would have much more preferred to get something like the Audience TIFF Award or even in the top 3 for that award, for it to be a strong consideration. Brazil's The Secret Agent. This is a movie that has probably got the best shot at all the ones I'm mentioning today of making it into the 10 for Best Picture. If for no other reason, you could use the sample size of last year's nominee, I'm Still Here, also from Brazil. Obviously, I'm Still Here was going to get in for International Feature, even with a thought-to-be powerhouse at the time in Emilia Perez being the frontrunner. But a lot of us, I won't say none of us because I don't know, but tons of us did not expect it to end up in the Best Picture 10, and when it did, I was thrilled, but I was also kind of shocked. I just didn't think it was going to happen. So with that being said, and the international wave continuing to grow, and that curve is still on the up, that helps a movie like The Secret Agent. Now, I have heard that it's not as emotional or dramatic as a film like I'm Still Here. It does still follow a very similar narrative, dealing with a very similar time of the dictatorship in Brazil in the late 1970s, early 80s, I believe. And apparently you have a powerhouse performance from Wagner Moura, who has also been in the mix for lead actor for me. He's right outside my top 5 right now, but he's been kind of seesawing back and forth in the 5 and outside of the 5. If the movie carries enough weight to it like I'm Still Here did, especially at the end of the season, like come December, the chatter could be loud enough for that film at the right time that it could end up getting a lot of votes to make it onto various long lists, short lists, and ultimately the nominations. Song Sung Blue from director Craig Brewer. This dude did Dolomite Is My Name with Eddie Murphy. Some think should have gotten nominated for that role, by the way. He also did the remake of Footloose about 10 or 12 years ago. He obviously likes dealing in the space of music movies. And we have another one here with Song Sung Blue, which deals with a duo, two friends that come together to basically make up a Neil Diamond cover band. So what's important here is I think this is a dark horse for me because the only music biopic, because there's other music movies perhaps, even Sinners you could say to a certain extent, but the only music biopic in the mix right now, at least for Best Picture, is Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere. So now you have another one with the trailer release and the buzz surrounding it being kind of thrown into the mix there, possibly giving it a battle because one of them is going to get nominated for Best Picture because a music biopic almost always shows up in the 10 when there's a notable one released. Now, I obviously think Deliver Me From Nowhere has a much better shot, and it actually is in my top 10 currently, as I showed you at the top of this video. But Song Sung Blue with actors like Hugh Jackman and Kate Hudson, you could see something happen with this movie. Let's say it comes out late in the year and people love it and the soundtrack blows up and it makes millions and box office return, everything's great, the acting is hailed as some of the best, then watch out, especially if you're Delivering Me From Nowhere. I don't think it's going to happen, which is the point of this video. I will say the trailer didn't do it any favors though. That thing looked rough. How about Sorry Baby, directed by Eva Victor? This is a movie that I think premiered at Sundance initially, early in the year, and a lot of the buzz out of Sundance was that this was going to be an Oscar player based on the content within the film, how emotionally moving but also kind of funny and poignant it was. And you had a actress in Eva Victor that also wrote the screenplay and is the star of the movie, Naomi Ackie, who has got a very well-known face among the industry, stars as her kind of like right-hand woman in the film, her best friend. And it's a very touching film and it's very personal. When you watch it, you do kind of say to yourself, man, this looks like an Oscar film, especially like from an independent movie making standpoint. You go, yeah, this is like the independent film that the Academy probably would go for. The problem is for Sorry Baby is that it came out in kind of a weird rollout, and it wasn't really promoted as an awards film. And I'm not saying it got forgotten about, but it's just such a crowded area now. And the 10 is, you could make it up so easily with just the movies I listed at the top of this video, let alone dark horses. But I do think there is a sliver of a chance that Eva Victor could get in for something like original screenplay. And if that happens, and being one of those prestigious categories that it is, it could start to spill over to other things if A24 decides to maybe do a re-release on it or jump onto the campaign late and push it at the right time. And then the last dark horse that I'm going to mention, as we're going in alphabetical order, is going to be Train Dreams from director Clint Bentley. This is a movie that comes out next month from Netflix, so one of the reasons why I think it's a dark horse right away is because Netflix has too much stuff on the docket, but I'm leaving Train Dreams in the mix as an underdog player because all the other ones seem to be kind of falling off for Netflix, with the exception of maybe Frankenstein and A House of Dynamite. All the other ones are at least like average to below average from what they thought they would be player-wise at the beginning of the season. Apparently also features the best performance of Joel Edgerton's career, and he's put in some stout work, so that's saying a whole lot. You've got Felicity Jones and Carrie Condon in here, both recent nominees at the Academy Awards and probably front of mind, not to mention acting veteran William H. Macy, who I always love in a supporting role in this film. And everything I've been hearing from it out of TIFF and Telluride is praise. A lot of praise of emotionality. It's a 98% on Rotten Tomatoes and an 85 in the green on Metacritic. What films are Netflix going to really campaign for? That's what it's going to come down to. If they choose Train Dreams to be one of their 2, 3, maybe 4 films that they really campaign for, at least for Best Picture and lead acting and that type of stuff, it could go far if they campaign it correctly and it's screened to the right people. Well, there you go, guys. Those were some dark horse contenders that I honestly don't think any of those will make it into the 10 for Best Picture, but I do think they have a possibility to spoil late in the season, especially movies like Train Dreams or The Secret Agent from Brazil that I mentioned. Now, I did give you like 16 or 17 titles at the top of this video that I would not consider a dark horse. Obviously, only 10 make it into Best Picture, but of that 17, we're probably going to get our makeup of collectively of 10 movies. It's just going to matter, is one of these dark horses, or maybe another one that I didn't even mention, going to creep up at the last second and sneak in there, very similar to what I'm Still Here did last year. It is possible for one of these to be the I'm Still Here of 2025. We'll have to wait and see. Let me know what you guys thought of this video. What did you think of the results of the TIFF Film Festival? And don't forget to subscribe, because coming up this weekend, I'm going to be doing my Leonardo DiCaprio movies tier list as I get ready for one battle after another. I will talk to you guys soon in the garage.